A small plane radioed in a final message at 7:12 p.m. over the ocean, then vanished without a trace. October 21, 1978. A Cessna 182 floatplane descended toward Bass Strait, the body of water separating mainland Australia from Tasmania. The pilot's name was Frederick Valentich. He was 20 years old. He'd logged roughly 200 hours. Tonight he was returning from King Island to Moorabbin Airport near Melbourne. The flight should have taken 90 minutes. It took less than one. At 7:06 p.m. Valentich radioed Melbourne flight service. His voice was steady. He reported seeing an unidentified aircraft, a long metallic object moving at high speed. He said it was orbiting above him. It seems to be playing some sort of game, he told controllers. They asked him to describe it further. Valentich couldn't. The object had no lights, no discernible wings. He was trying to maintain altitude. Controllers asked if he wanted to divert. Valentich said no, he wanted to continue. His last transmission came seconds later. It's not an aircraft. A pause, then it is approaching from due east right now. The radio filled with a metallic sound, a grinding noise, high-pitched rhythmic, then silence. The frequency went dead. Valentich never responded again. The search began within hours. The Australian authorities mobilized multiple agencies. They dispatched helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft and ships to comb Bass Strait. The search area expanded to cover hundreds of square miles. Visibility was poor. The weather turned. Days passed. They found nothing. Not the plane, not the pilot, not a single piece of wreckage. Valentich's background was unremarkable. He worked as a flight instructor. He'd had some minor incidents, a landing mishap here, a navigational error there, nothing catastrophic, nothing that suggested instability. His friends described him as ambitious, cautious even. He kept meticulous records. He was the sort of pilot who followed procedure. The official explanation arrived within weeks. The Civil Aviation Authority concluded that Valentich had likely become disoriented. They suggested he'd entered a spin. Spatial disorientation at night over dark water is lethal. A pilot loses reference points. The inner ear deceives. The plane descends. It hits the water at speed. Impact would be catastrophic. The plane sinks. The pilot drowns. Search teams find nothing because the wreckage lies too deep. But the tape told a different story. Flight service had recorded Valentich's entire transmission. Investigators heard the same thing the controllers heard. Valentich was calm. His instrument readings were coherent. He was oriented. He was reporting external stimuli, the unidentified object, its movements, its proximity. A man spinning into disorientation doesn't sound like that. He sounds panicked, confused. Valentich sounded like a pilot reporting a problem. Other pilots came forward. Several reported seeing unusual aircraft in the same region that week. They described lights, metallic objects, movements that defied conventional aerodynamics. None of these sightings made official reports. Few were documented. The accounts surfaced in interviews, in letters, in conversations with researchers years later. By then, the official narrative was fixed. In 1982, a piece of wreckage washed ashore on Flinders Island. It was an aircraft seat. The fabric matched the interior of a Cessna 182. The serial number matched Valentich's plane. It was the only piece of wreckage ever recovered. An entire aircraft had vanished. One seat remained. The seat proved nothing about how the crash occurred. Theories proliferated. Some researchers argued for a deliberate hoax. Valentich, they said, had staged the encounter to distract from a disappearance he'd orchestrated. He'd flown to New Zealand. He'd assumed a new identity. The theory required an unlikely sequence of events and a degree of premeditation that the evidence didn't support. It also didn't account for the unidentified object itself. Other pilots had seen it. The UFO hypothesis gained traction in alternative circles. Valentich had encountered an extraterrestrial craft. The object had disabled his plane. It had taken him. The theory explained the radio silence. It explained the absence of wreckage. It explained why one seat washed ashore but nothing else did. It explained everything except itself. No evidence of extraterrestrial activity exists. No corroborating sightings placed an alien craft in the area. The most credible alternative explanation centers on a military aircraft. In 1978, Australia was conducting classified flight tests. A Royal Australian Air Force jet operating at night in restricted airspace might have crossed Valentich's flight path. An encounter at high speed, a collision perhaps unintentional, an immediate cover-up. The military would have every incentive to suppress the truth. The evidence supporting this theory is circumstantial, but it's coherent. Declassified documents released decades later revealed nothing conclusive. The official files contained the Civil Aviation Authority's report, the search records, and little else. Whatever the military knew, if it knew anything, remained classified. Researchers filed Freedom of Information requests. Some were granted, most were denied. The gaps in the record are as significant as the content. Valentich's family never accepted the official explanation. They commissioned independent investigations. They hired researchers. They pushed for inquiries. Decades passed. No new evidence emerged. No wreckage was found. No witnesses came forward with definitive information. The case remained open. It remains open today. In Australian aviation records, it's listed as an unexplained disappearance. What happened to Frederick Valentich remains unknown. The facts are simple. A 20-year-old pilot took off on a routine flight. He reported an unidentified object. He transmitted a metallic sound. He stopped transmitting. His plane vanished. No body was recovered. No explanation was proven. 45 years later, the case sits in the margins of aviation history, acknowledged but unresolved. The Valentich case endures because it refuses easy closure. It's not quite a UFO story. It's not quite an accident. It's not quite a hoax. It occupies the space between the explainable and the inexplicable. The tape exists. The words are clear. The mystery is genuine. And sometimes that's all history leaves us, with a question, a date, and the sound of a voice that never returned. Subscribe for weekly deep dives into cold cases and historical mysteries that still don't have answers.